Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Did you really just click on this video expecting to understand anything I'm about to say? We're not talking about books this video. We're talking about Pulitzer Prize fiction. That's right. Hold on tight, you stupid fuck. Someone also left a comment on one of my videos. If I remember, I'll pop it up here. This guy said, adjust your shot, get a better microphone, treat your space. And I was like, fuck, do you want me to call you sir too? So that's the real reason I got a new mic. Welcome back to my channel, 8 Babies. If you're new here, I'm Charles and you're gorgeous. I like Pulitzer Prize books because they're like a gateway drug into literary elitism. Like imagine someone asking you, say, Charles, what sorts of books do you read? Oh, I guess I enjoy the patinaed Pulitzer Prize fiction winners of the 80s and 90s. And what about you? What sorts of books do you enjoy, you stupid bitch? I've actually read a good few Pulitzer Prize fiction winners. When I say Pulitzer Prize winners, I mean solely the fiction category. I'm not out here reading like the New York Times is Pulitzer Prize winning journal articles or however the hell they do it. I mean fiction, like novels and occasionally short stories. Funnily enough, 2 of these are short story kind of collections. Anyway, I've read a good few. I've also read a lot of finalists for the Pulitzer Prize, and about a third of my favorite books of all time are from authors who've either won the Pulitzer Prize or have been a finalist. I don't remember why I started seeking out Pulitzer Prize winning novels specifically. Books, whatever. Short story collections. You know, books. Cut all that. I don't know why I've had a lot of caffeine today. If I can get through this video without like absolutely tweaking, you owe me $5. I've had coffee this morning and then I had an energy drink. And then I went to Starbucks and got a nitro cold brew. And now I'm like sweating. It's also 90 degrees outside, which is probably why I'm sweating a bit. Oh. Did you hear my jaw crack? Anyway. I don't remember why I started seeking out Pulitzer Prize books specifically. I think I had a good experience with either a finalist or a winner, and then I was like, why don't I go on their website and check out what other books have won over the years? So I did. And that kind of served as the springboard into my current era of reading. Era just being a pompous way of designating the periods of my reading life which differ in the type of book I tended towards. There was a point in high school when I wasn't enjoying the type of books I'd been reading for years, and I didn't particularly enjoy the books we were reading in high school English class. Those pretty much being just Americana classics like Huck Finn, To Kill a Mockingbird, Of Mice and Men, R.I.P. That's a spoiler, Charles, cut that. But I was stuck in this aggravating mindset of I want to be reading books, but I can't find books I really like. And that's where literary awards can really help. If you're feeling stuck in a genre or book trope / type that you're tired of. This sounds like an ad for the Pulitzer Prize Committee. But there are tons of award lists out there. National Book Award, Hugo Award, Women's Prize, National Book Award. Exploring a literary award list like one of those can really broaden your reading horizons and help you find books you end up loving but wouldn't have picked up otherwise because they didn't sound like books you'd enjoy. When I say broaden your reading horizons, I don't just mean it as like a word mush of a cliche. I like literally mean it. What's so cool about a prize like the Pulitzer Prize is that the books that win over the years are wildly different from one another in writing style, setting, tone, author background, but they share very similar core elements. For the Pulitzer Prize, those elements being love, death, family, loneliness, stuff like that. Which is like what every book is about, but the Pulitzer babies just do it better, obviously. But I generally really like them, like I said. They win for a reason, you know? Those people up in New York, I'm pretty sure Columbia gives out the prize. They know what they're doing. Most of the time. I hate Cormac McCarthy's The Road. I think that book is horrendous. I think that not only do I clash with it aesthetically, which does not mean a book's bad. If you don't like it, there's a difference. You can not like a book and appreciate it. Not only do I not like The Road, I think it is bad. A bad book. I talk about it in one of my vlogs if you want to see that. Yeah. This is all to say that Pulitzer Prize books have played a very big role in my reading life in the past few years. I guess only in the past few years and currently. Like pandemic and onward. I don't know. I'm not very good at pinpointing. Let's move on. But hence this video. Also a subscriber, one of my fans actually. Now that I'm famous, I don't really like calling people who watch my videos subscribers. There's too much agency and not enough subordinacy. I prefer the term fans. So a fan commented and said I should do a Pulitzer Prize reading video. And I was like, why the hell not? So I flew to my bookshelf and picked out 3 Pulitzer Prize books. I have to restrain myself from saying novels because one's a short story collection, one's a hybrid between short story and novel, and one's a novel. So I'll just keep saying Pulitzer Prize books. But I flew to my bookshelf, picked out 3, and we're gonna talk about them in this video. The books I read are Jhumpa Lahiri's Interpreter of Maladies. I hope I didn't just say Interpreter of Lamadies because I'm not doing another cut. I've been meaning to read this book for years now. I was supposed to read it as part of a book club a couple years ago and I was really busy and so I didn't get time to read it, but I've been looking forward to it and you'll hear my thoughts in just a minute. The next book I read was Olive Kitteridge by Elizabeth Strout. I meant to do some digging before I filmed this video, but I think this is a series. Let me do a quick Google search. Olive Kitteridge. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a series. I think that I don't want to be spreading misinformation on the internet. That's a lie. I would love to be spreading misinformation, just not where it concerns Olive Kitteridge or Elizabeth Strout. I think there are 4. I know it's a series. I think she released a book like last year, something called Oh William, and I think that's part of the Olive Kitteridge series, but the second book is called Olive Again. So I'll probably pick up a sequel eventually. The last book I read is Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. I think this cover's hot. I'm pretty sure... Oh my god, you can see my bookmark in it. Spoiler alert. I think this cover's hot, but I think there are newer editions of the covers. It's 4 books, I'm pretty sure. I can't keep fact checking myself. Just assume I'm lying if... I think there are 4 books and that this is a series and they have hot covers, but I really like this cover. The other ones were in Target for a minute. I think she might have just released a 4th book. I don't know. Those are the books I read for this video. I got a new mic, by the way. Can you hear the difference? Do you like how it sounds? Comment down below. No, like seriously, let me know if you can hear a difference and if you like it. I tried running tests. I am not technologically inclined by any means, so I have no idea like how different it sounds, if it sounds good, and also if the audio on this video is botched when I go to edit it. I'm quitting YouTube. I can't handle having to re-record this video, but I'll do it for you guys if it's botched. I'm really praying it's not. I hear all these horror stories about famous YouTubers like myself switching microphones and then like the audio being terrible and like buzzing and shit. Anyway, I was slinking around Target as one does. I actually was like literally just going there with my brother to slink around like an ape. I did not need anything. And we were in the electronics section and I saw this mic and it was on sale for $40 off. And I was like, I've been thinking about getting a new mic just for the like plot twist. And I was like, sure, why not? I'd put off getting a better mic because I was just afraid that it would be too much of a headache to figure out and I just wanted to read and make videos. But I saw it for $40 off and I was like, now's the time. And so I bought it. It's in this like silver color, which you can see. I wanted it in black, but they only had one left and it was silver. The silver kind of makes me feel like a porn star. Also, having a big ass microphone, before it was just this tiny little like tampon of a mic. Cut that. I love having a big mic. It makes me feel so important, like I actually have anything worthwhile to say, which is nice. A good pat on the back for my ego. Someone also left a comment on one of my videos If I remember, I'll pop it up here. This guy said, adjust your shot, get a better microphone, treat your space. And I was like, fuck, do you want me to call you sir too? So that's the real reason I got a new mic, because a bot on the internet told me to. Side note, not that that's like really a hate comment. I'm sure it came from a place of love, and the guy who left it actually loves to read, which is why he left me such a thoughtful comment about the books I talked about in that video. But I feel incredibly important when people leave me hate comments. Like, can you imagine someone getting on their cucked ass keyboard, their 2012 Dell Chromebook Ultra, grabbing a bag of Lay's barbecue potato chips and being like, fuck yeah, I'm gonna ruin this kid's day. Like, that's how you know you've made it. That's power, baby. Which is how I know I'm not worldwide famous yet, because I've gotten like 4 mild hate comments, and they're all on one particular video I made about an albino Slytherin twink's memoir, Interpreter of Maladies. I love this book. This book, I start that out with every book I love with like the same intonation. It's not intentional, comes from a place of deep feeling. But it's really, really, really good. I expected this to be very good. I had very high expectations going in. I've heard great things, and it sounds like it would be really great, but I've been let down before, so I've been let down before. I've had my heart broken. The more I put this off, the more I was like, if this is awful, it's really gonna crush me. So this video was like a great way of getting me to finally read it, and it was as fantastic as I expected, and then some. This is a collection of short stories that shows how unfair and sad and boring life can be. But Lahiri writes in such a down-to-earth, kind way that it gives all the tragic shit that goes down in this book a hopeful hue. Some of the major themes she considers in the short stories are loss, yearning, claustrophobia, loneliness, love, isolation, and resilience. She knows how to do a damn short story. It's funny, in my last video, I asked for short story recommendations because, what did I read? I don't remember what I read, but I don't think I particularly liked it. And I was like, give me some short story. Oh my God, it was 5 Tuesdays in Winter by Lily King. And it was fine. Not memorable, not fantastic, but fine. And I was like, give me some recommendations. Someone actually recommended this, and I was like, you just wait. Because I was making that video when I got the comment. But this is how you do a damn short story. Each story is fully considered and intentional in form, even if ephemeral. But that's like what a short story should be. Fleeting but hard-hitting. You get in, you beat that shit up, and then you get the hell out. And Lahiri gets that. These short stories are very clearly short stories. There is no doubt in my mind that these were failed bits or beginnings of novels that she just kind of crammed into a collection. They fit very nicely together. They're not redundant. They're perfect. The endings to each story are perfect. They're like, I don't know why, when I was reading these, all I could think about was Aesop's fables. They're like fables, kinda. I don't even know what a fable is. The writing is fantastic. It's plain, it's simple. Came here to write a banger collection of short stories, and she did just that. And you can tell she's being genuine, as far as being genuine is possible in the deception that is fiction. Every story is simple and brilliant. You can't ask for much more. These stories are probably the best short stories I've ever read, alongside Edgar Allan Poe stories. Best in that I really enjoyed them, but also that they really do work as short stories. They're not novels. They work. They were just meant to be short stories, and they're great. These stories reminded me of Lily King's writing. Both very simple, but brilliant in their simplicity. They're also thematically similar. And more broadly, they're both very comforting authors. Like their writing, their works, their books are that I've read. This is the only Lahiri book I've read. I've seen a few at like Goodwill and stuff, but I haven't picked them up. Let me know if you've read any of the books I talk about in this video, obviously, but then also if you've read any similar works, if you've read any other works by the author. I would recommend this book to anyone. I can see myself rereading it in a few years, probably. I'm trying to get through as many books as possible now, and then when I hit like 30, I'm gonna stop reading new books and just reread all the books I love. Do you guys have hot takes on rereading books? On to a bit more nitty-gritty stuff, a sort of disjointed list of things I noted while reading Interpreter of Maladies. The first story in this collection elicited such a strong sense of not nostalgia, but an equally powerful and distinct feeling of loss. Like Paradise Lost or Love Lost. I think I've been overusing Paradise Lost. I said it a shit ton in one of my last videos, but it is kind of a Paradise Lost feeling, which sure is common, like everyone loses something, but I'm talking about the like feeling the novel elicits. Like it's very, you can feel it. Which kind of dovetails into my take that the lasting impact of this book on me will be less in the details of the stories themselves and more in how each story made me feel. Like reading this collection elicited very distinct pangs of emotion in me. Like I was an emotional bitch when I was reading these, but in an enjoyable and comforting way. The stories made me feel hopeful and sad, but sad in a like pleasant, peaceful way. Sad in a life sucks, but I guess I'll keep trying kind of way, which is inspiring to me. I'm not really summarizing these books so much as like the points and ideas that they consider and made me consider. The first story follows a couple post having a stillbirth and they've really grown apart. It's very sad, obviously. But the story centers around a time when their power goes out every day for like an hour at 7 p.m. And at 7 p.m. when the lights go out, they kind of just like talk about their feelings. The first story reminded me that things like silly rituals can be very meaningful and worthwhile, or just like arbitrary, silly, random occurrences or ideas which we attach significance to. It's why, while I'm not a horoscope guy myself, I don't dismiss it as worthless. It's also why I don't dismiss religion as worthless. People often need something stupid and silly to make sense of life. It doesn't matter how silly or stupid you think things like religion or horoscopes may be. They promote self-reflection and connection between people, and that's very worthwhile. And that's what the first story of Interpreter of Maladies really reminded me of. Also, I don't know why, but the first story really beat me up. Like, the specifics of the story are of course awful, but that doesn't warrant the like beat down that I felt when reading it in like a good way. Like you know, when you're beat down by a story, but in a good way. I'm not expounding on that. Lahiri does a great job of relating a sense of tiredness that I think anyone can relate to, and that's why the like first story really hit hard. I'm a narcissistic reader. What I mean by that is like I'm very heavily attentive, swayed, whatever, to passages, ideas, concepts that I relate to. Something like that. Everyone's a narcissistic reader. That's like the premise of personal taste. Side note, I'm pretty sure she moved to Italy. She lives in Italy now. Jhumpa Lahiri, not one of the characters. And she wrote a book entirely in Italian, which is crazy. I was reminded of that by one of the stories. There's like one quote talking about language. It was like in praise of language. I don't remember what the specific quote was, but I was like, oh, you can tell she's being genuine because I don't know how long after writing this she moved with her family to Italy, but I was like, you can see the seeds. I learned some about Indian culture, which was cool. I like a novel, book, short story, whatever, that can introduce you to a different group of people's customs, culture, whatever, but do it in such a seamless way. Like the things I learned about Indian culture are like, they're just like super slyly woven into the stories. She's not like lecturing you on Indian customs. It's like almost context clue-y. It was nice. But I don't like reading scratch. Just to be redundant for like the third time, this book is a reality check. It's like life fucking sucks. Get a grip and make the most of it, which is really sweet and inspiring and hopeful. Let me read you one of my favorite quotes. That word sexy, what does it mean? He cupped his hands over his mouth and then he whispered, it means loving someone you don't know. Brutal. Brutal. Jesus Christ. Destroyed. Like the implications of that quote are brutal and bleak and sad and true. Crazy. So good. I think my like mouth opened a little when I was reading it. I was like, it's crazy when an author can redefine a word that's as ubiquitous as sexy is in such a cutting and resonant and true way, which is what Lahiri does with the word sexy. And it's brutal. Sexy means loving someone you don't know. Are you kidding me? She's very smart. Obviously. Also, I didn't cringe once while reading these stories. What I mean by that is like sometimes I'll be reading a book and there'll be a line or a passage that I get to and I'm like, I like physically cringe and get like shivers because it's like so uncomfortable. I didn't cringe out once while reading this, which is important to note because it's so hard to write a book with topics like this and get out unscathed by cliche or cringe. That's all the harder when you take such a simple, direct approach to these heavy themes like Lahiri does. I love all of the stories. We've talked about like none of them, and I'm not going to. I think everyone should read this book. I recommend it. The titular story is great. What a great title for the collection. Interpreter of Maladies is such a great book title. And the collection is like an interpretation of all of the maladies that befall us throughout life. I want to say none of the stories really stood out as a clear favorite, but that's only because all of them were so great. Like, I love the titular story. I love Sexy. That's the title of the story I read you a quote from. I love A Real Derwan. My neighbor's chopping his lawn. Cut. I love Mrs. Sen's. So good. What a great story on like isolation and claustrophobia. Really good. Yeah, I'm not gonna flip through the book and name each story and be like, I love that story. But they're all great. And it only took a minute to read. Really, really recommend. If you love short stories, you'll love this. If you hate short stories, I think you should give this one a try. These stories couldn't be conveyed in any other form that would make them more effective in their message. Like, these stories were made for short story format, which I've said like 6 times at this point. Let's move on. The next book I read is Olive Kitteridge, and I also love this book. It is also great. This book is, as a blurb on the front calls it, a novel in stories. I've had this on my shelf for a year or two, and I thought going into this that it was just like a collection of short stories, and it is, but like the blurb says, it's a novel in stories, and they're all connected by the character Olive Kitteridge. I love this format of book, which I haven't come across often. It's a collection of short stories, but by virtue of them being linked by Olive Kitteridge and like they're in the same universe, it allows for great pacing because you like get in a story, then you move on. Each story is like a fun little mini mystery to see how those characters connect to ones you've already met. I want to say it's dreamlike almost, which sounds kind of stupid, but like when you're having a dream, they're very disjointed. Like, you're in one place and then you just kind of like swing to another, you know? But this is how this book is. You like follow one short story with a host of characters, and then you swing to another short story where you might have 1 or 2 of the same characters, but it's like a whole new plot line and there are different ideas being considered. Calling it dreamlike probably isn't the best description. What's that story, Valentine's Day? No, like the movie, the one Taylor Swift's in. Kind of like that. I don't know. The closest comparison I have for Olive Kitteridge is Jennifer Egan's A Visit from the Goon Squad, which I love. They're both like the same format of short stories that are loosely related but all set in the same universe, and you sometimes see characters pop up in multiple stories. It's so clever. I love this method of storytelling. It allows for a great sense of anticipation of, in Olive Kitteridge, when Olive's gonna show up, because she shows up in each story to varying degrees. Like, some stories she's prominently featured and some she's a very peripheral character, but the format, like I was saying, allows for anticipation of like, how does this connect and when is Olive gonna show up? And also, both Goon Squad and Olive Kitteridge reward attentive readers. By reward attentive readers, I mean that there'll be like these hints and tidbits that, like, if you remember and keep in the back of your mind, and they're very just like slyly and seemingly haphazardly tossed into the story, which is why I read Goon Squad with friends and they were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, you didn't catch that part? Like, how clever it was. Like, the format allows for the author to just like be winking at you as you pick up on these tiny clues and remember them and see how they play into later stories, and that's so clever and so fun. And you also get to see characters from different point of views. Overall, I think Goon Squad does a better job of this format, but Olive Kitteridge is still fantastic. I should stop comparing them because Goon Squad is a lot more clever, but Olive Kitteridge is a lot more hard-hitting in the themes. It's very thematically similar to Interpreter of Maladies. Both of them explore very sad things in life, but do it with a hopeful inflection. The hopeful inflection in Olive Kitteridge is heavily punctuated by the last page of this book, which is fantastic. It's such a beautiful, I think it's a paragraph or two. It's like 3 paragraphs, but it's really fantastic. There are lots of heavy topics in Olive Kitteridge, and I think more prominently and bluntly displayed in Olive Kitteridge than in Interpreter of Maladies. Olive Kitteridge touches on suicide, eating disorders, a hostage situation, which when I got to, I was like so taken aback. I was like, we're reading about this like old woman in Maine, and then there's a hostage situation, which was crazy, but well done. Like, I was really afraid it would be kitschy to like just put this absurd hostage situation in a story that's otherwise very small towny cast of characters, but it would have been kitschy had not Elizabeth Strout then explored the effects of that traumatic incident on the people inside it, which I won't say just in case that's a spoiler. I like some of the stories more than others, but overall I had a blast. And like Interpreter of Maladies, I would recommend this to anyone. I read the first story and I was like, I'm not gonna love this book. I mean, the first story is fine, but like the subsequent stories really go hard. I don't think the character of Olive Kitteridge will be leaving my head anytime soon. She's a great character. I think a major reason why I didn't love the first story is what contributes to my overall appreciation for the collection that is a novel. Because in the first story, you're introduced to Olive Kitteridge. Obviously, it's the first story. You're introduced to Olive as a flat, bitchy, bitter, like middle-aged woman. But then throughout the subsequent stories, you gradually learn more and more about her and see different aspects of her personality through her interactions with different characters. And Olive is a great character. Like, what a memorable woman. Character. She's not a real woman. She's great. And by the end, you really feel for Olive and you love her as a character, or at least I did. And there's no way you won't. She's such a great character, truly multifaceted. She's funny, she's bitchy, she's kind, she's persistent, she's hopeful. On to some random thoughts I had from Olive Kitteridge. The first story is told in past tense. I think it starts out being told in past tense, and then there's this jump to present and you switch back and forth. And I really like that. It's very clever. All 3 of the books I read for this video are very simple books, but they're so cleverly written. And if you don't pay close attention, you like won't catch what a feat these books are. You know what I mean? One of the aspects I'm talking about is that switch between past and present tense. The third novel, which I'll skip to briefly, Gilead, does this even better than Olive Kitteridge. It's a first-person narration, and he's writing it to his son. You watch him slip into present tense, forgetting that he's recounting a memory and not experiencing it real time, which is so clever. But it's subtle. I think that all 3 of these novels could be really underappreciated. I say like all 3 of them didn't win the Pulitzer Prize. I mean, if they were to be misconstrued as simple and unremarkable, it would be because people don't catch the like simple and subtle brilliance of these novels. Anyway, I love when authors play around with past and present tense. I also love when authors play around with point of view. I think that switching in point of view can be so chilling and effective. And also the switching in tense is more subtle but equally clever. In one of the stories, Olive Kitteridge steals a woman's shoe, just one, from a pair in this woman's closet, and she draws on a sweater with Sharpie and then puts it back folded like she found it. And the point of it is to like keep this woman's self-doubt alive. And it's so funny and brilliant. The woman Olive Kitteridge does this to is this like highly educated, snooty, know-it-all woman who's very condescending to her and not very kind to her, and like talks shit about the dress she was wearing behind her back. So she's like this cocky, arrogant, unpleasant woman. And Olive steals the one shoe and marks the sweater to keep her self-doubt alive. Like, why would anyone steal one shoe and mark a sweater? Like, there's absolutely no reason. And by virtue of that, it keeps this woman's self-doubt alive. That's brilliant. And also very funny. One of my favorite stories, probably my favorite story. I love Olive Kitteridge's character arc, but she's not featured in this story except for like 2 sentences. The story that I'm talking about is the piano player story, which I think is pitch perfect, taut, and incredible. It's a story about a nearing middle-aged single woman who plays the piano every day, and it's set in Christmas time, which is the perfect setting for the story. And she plays piano at a bar, and it's brilliant. The story is. It's very sad, very lonely. It's just a great portrayal of a lonely, isolated, beat down person. I'm not gonna talk a lot about the synopses. I hope that's the plural for synopsis of these books. I think you should read Olive Kitteridge. I love this book. Low-key, Olive Kitteridge's character arc throughout the book really reminds me of the narrator's character arc in Ottessa Moshfegh's My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Like the epilogue, I think My Year of Rest and Relaxation has an epilogue. The last part is very similar to the last page of Olive Kitteridge, and the characters are also very similar. I love both books. If you've read both, let me know what you think. On to a few quotes that I really enjoyed from this book. I love sharing quotes. I think they're the perfect tidbit to entice someone into reading a book you like, or into convincing them that the book is shit and you shouldn't read it. This is about a paragraph of a quote, and it's from the piano player story I was talking about. It starts off in dialogue. "And I've been feeling pretty sorry for you, Angie, all these years." She smiled straight ahead of her. "Good night, Simon," she said. She drank with one hand all the Irish coffee. And then she played all sorts of songs. She didn't know what she played, couldn't have said, but she was inside the music, and the lights on the Christmas tree were bright and seemed far away. Inside the music like this, she understood many things. She understood that Simon was a disappointed man if he needed, at this age, to tell her he had pitied her for years. She understood that as he drove his car back down the coast toward Boston, toward his wife with whom he had raised 3 children, that something in him would be satisfied to have witnessed her the way he had tonight. And she understood that this form of comfort was true for many people, but it was thin milk, this form of nourishment. It could not change that you had wanted to be a concert pianist and ended up a real estate lawyer, that you had married a woman and stayed married to her for 30 years when she did not ever find you lovely in bed. Savage. Beautiful and savage. What a great quote. I think if that doesn't convince you to read the book, then you probably shouldn't read it. I love the line, "But it was thin milk, this form of nourishment." Amen. And everyone does this sort of getting off to other people's misfortune, and it really is disgusting and pathetic and thin milk, which I think is a phrase that should be popularized into the vernacular. Like, that's thin milk. Cut it out. Like, be fucking for real. Another quote I like, "Didn't think he was a bit nice. I thought Christians were supposed to be nice." Her son turned to put his mug into the sink. "If I had more energy, I'd laugh." Amen. Another quote I love, "A feeling of benevolence swept through her. She wished the best for everyone." Very simple, but like also very relatable to me. Sometimes I just get these intense waves and feelings of like, I want people to be happy. Like I said, simple, but I really related, and I thought it was just like a very hard-hitting line. I was like, same. Another super hard-hitting quote, which I won't situate for you in the book, apart from saying that it occurs right after a woman sees this guy getting arrested and hears his Miranda rights being read to him. Here's the quote. "Moving carefully down the hall stairway, the words repeated in her head. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right, you have the right, you have the right. It would be worth the arrest if they put it like that." So good. Banger. And then knowing how that quote is situated in the story, it's like all the more powerful and banger-esque. The last of my favorite quotes is, "The bovine nature of this girl was baffling." And then less than a page later, a character says, "Oh no, I'm a horse." I love that within the span of a page, Elizabeth Strout thought to call her characters horses and cows. Awesome. Pulitzer Prize winners like Olive Kitteridge do a gorgeous job of exploring how to get through a life that beats the fuck out of you, as life tends to do. Like Interpreter of Maladies, I would recommend this to everyone. It's really fun, really short. Even if you don't end up loving Olive Kitteridge, I think you'll still appreciate it a good bit and have enjoyed reading it. Yeah. The last book is where things derail a bit. That's Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. And I mentioned in the beginning of this video that my bookmark was still in it. Because it is. I didn't finish this book. This book wasn't bad by any means. In fact, I thought it was really good. And I have like more tabs in it. than I do in like Interpreter of Maladies. It has some really, really good quotes, but I don't know. I got halfway through the book and I was like, I just wasn't clicking with it. At that point, I was just listening to the audiobook and like making a smoothie and zoning out. And I was like, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. I didn't like this book aesthetically. Like it didn't, I don't know. I just wasn't having a blast. This book is a first person narration. It's a man on his deathbed writing his son a letter. And it's really beautiful and very well written. And it's written in almost vignettes. So it's like easy to get through because you're just reading like short chunks until you're done. But I just like started zoning out when I was listening to the audiobook and I was like, I just don't really care. Not finishing this book really just came down to personal taste. I think this book is fantastic, but I didn't love it. The first paragraph though is incredible. Or like the first vignette, which is made up of 2 paragraphs. I'll read it to you because it's like that good. I told you last night that I might be gone sometime and you said, where? And I said, to be with the good Lord. And you said, why? And I said, because I'm old. And you said, I don't think you're old. And you put your hand in my hand and you said, you aren't very old. As if that settled it. I told you you might have a very different life from mine and from the life you've had with me, and that would be a wonderful thing. There are many ways to live a good life. And you said, Mama already told me that. And then you said, don't laugh, because you thought I was laughing at you. You reached up and put your fingers on my lips and gave me that look I never in my life saw on any other face besides your mother's. It's a kind of furious pride, very passionate and stern. I'm always a little surprised to find my eyebrows unsinged after I've suffered one of those looks. I will miss them. It seems ridiculous to suppose the dead miss anything. If you're a grown man when you read this, it is my intention for this letter that you will read it then. I'll have been gone a long time. I'll know most of what there is to know about being dead, but I'll probably keep it to myself. That seems to be the way of things. That's one of the best book openings I've ever read. Incredible. And then the quotes are similarly brilliant, but I just didn't, I don't know. Maybe I was like burnt out after like a week of... I started these books on Wednesday, I think, and finished on Friday of the week because I started a different video, which should be coming out next week, but I really couldn't finish those books, so I switched to this video because it was just like 3 short books I knew I'd enjoy. And Gilead was the last book I got to. I think it was a combination of me not aesthetically loving it and being like a little tired of reading, maybe, that pushed me to be like, I'm just not gonna finish this. I'll definitely circle back to this book eventually, sometime. I'll reread it from the start. I also think audiobooks impact my ingestion of a book a little too much to be worthwhile. And also, I listen to them on like 3 times speed because otherwise it's like way too slow. And I think I read faster alone anyway. The only benefit of audiobooks is that they like help me keep pace so that I like know how long exactly it's gonna take me to finish a book. But I think after my experience with Gilead, I'm not really gonna be doing the like audiobook and reading along, which can be nice, and I've done it in the past, but I read faster anyway, and the like way they pause after every sentence really aggravates me, and that's like why in the end I end up reading faster, because I don't like read a sentence in my head and then pause. I'll come back to this one. If you've read Gilead, let me know. I don't think my take that I don't like this novel aesthetically is gonna change, but I think that reading it at a slower pace and at another point in my life, I'm talking years, I don't plan on picking this up anytime soon, but years later I might appreciate it more. It's just like all recounting of old incidents, because it's like a letter this guy's writing to his son while the guy is on his deathbed, so of course it's like a recounting, but I don't know. I just didn't love it. And the religious themes, they didn't bother me. They were fine. But I didn't like love them. I'm going to read you a few quotes from this book to do it justice, instead of being like, this book just didn't aesthetically align with my taste, which is like really bratty and annoying. I'm just going to rapid fire them to you. Quote, there was a seriousness about her that seemed almost like a kind of anger. Amen. Great description. Quote, I don't write the way I speak. I'm afraid you would think I didn't know any better. I don't write the way I do for the pulpit either, better insofar as I can help it. That would seem ridiculous in the circumstances. I do try to write the way I think, but of course that all changes as soon as I put it into words. And the more it does seem to be my thinking, the more pulpitish it sounds, which I guess is inevitable. I will resist that inflection nevertheless. Very interesting commentary on like the friction between what you think and what you say or write, the like gap that is inevitable. Quote, "But I've developed a great reputation for wisdom by ordering more books than I ever had time to read, and reading more books by far than I learned anything useful from." Amen. Quote, "You can love a bad book for its haplessness or pomposity or guile." Amen. Quote, "A good sermon is one side of a passionate conversation. It has to be heard that way. There are three parties to it, of course, but so are there even to the most private thought. The self that yields the thought, the self that acknowledges and in some way responds to the thought, and the Lord. That is a remarkable thing to consider." Quote, "As I write, I am aware that my memory has made much of very little." Quote, "That was the first time in my life I ever knew what it was to love another human being. Not that I hadn't loved people before, but I hadn't realized what it meant to love them before." Quote, "People talk about how wonderful the world seems to children, and that's true enough. But children think they will grow into it and understand it. And I know very well that I will not, and would not if I had a dozen lives. That's clearer to me every day." Amen. Amen. Quote, "Trees sound different at night, and they smell different too." Quote, "As you read this, I hope you will understand that when I speak of the long night that preceded these days of my happiness, I do not remember grief and loneliness so much as I do peace and comfort. Grief, but never without comfort. Loneliness, but never without peace. Almost never." Quote, "Sometimes the visionary aspect of any particular day comes to you in the memory of it." Quote, "My point here is that you never do know the actual nature even of your own experience, or perhaps it has no fixed and certain nature." Amen. I'm going to stop reading you quotes now. Those quotes I think are very representative of the book as a whole, because it's like a guy writing to his son when the guy's on his deathbed. And so like, of course it'll be kind of life lesson-y, but the life lessons are great, as you heard from the quotes. Oh my God. My favorite part of this book is the review in the front. The first review on the inside flap is by Anne Patchett, but spelled Anne like A-N-N-E. And her first name is not spelled with an E. It's just Ann, A-N-N. That typo is awesome. I love when I find like a stupid little typo in a book. It's like, did you not have an editor? Like, what was going on? All it takes is like a reread or two to catch errors. I haven't found any awful errors in books recently, but it feels like I used to find them all the time, which was like ridiculous. But I love the like Ann with an E Patchett review on the front. Really awesome. I wonder if I picked up a modern version of this book, like there's a newer edition out, if it has Anne Patchett's review on one of the inside pages and if they corrected the spelling of her name. That's it for the books I read for this video, or like almost entirely read. I had a blast. This kind of like solidifies my take that I'll never not have an enjoyable or enriching experience reading a Pulitzer Prize winner, save Cormac McCarthy's The Road. Some of them I don't love as much, but I still appreciate reading. See Gilead, but others, bangers. And Interpreter of Maladies and Olive Kitteridge are amazing. These three books are like a crash course in humanity. If an alien crashed into my front lawn tomorrow, I would give them these three books and say, this is what it's like to be human. I really think you should read Interpreter of Maladies and Olive Kitteridge, and Gilead to an extent. I mean, if you like the quotes and you like the like the guy on his deathbed was a preacher, if you like that sort of like father-son kind of wisdom tone, read Gilead. I don't like that tone, which is part of the reason I put it down, because it was like vaguely starting to remind me of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which follows a father and son and is sort of life lesson-y too. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it turns out okay post-editing. I feel very erratic. This feels like it's been all over the place, but I feel like this after I film every video and then I edit it and I'm like, that wasn't so bad. I had to switch my battery halfway through filming this. Thank God I bought more batteries because I'm famous now. I was like, why don't I buy a few more batteries? And I did, but they're like bootleg batteries off Amazon, which is probably why it only lasted a minute. Yeah. Do you guys read Pulitzer Prize novels, or do you have fetishes for other literary book awards? I love a Pulitzer Prize, you know? I think we're gonna wrap up the video now. I'm probably gonna take like a 30-minute break, maybe grab a little snack, and then get to editing the hell out of this video. Okay, thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.